Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nerding Out with Nic Bodiford. I'm your host, Nic Bodiford. The date is November 7th, 2022. We are on Monday night of week 9, a few hours before Monday Night Football kicks off. We're going to go game by game, breaking down all of the action from the Thursday and Sunday slate. And wherever we have, season-long advice or waiver wire advice, we will address that along the way. First things first, Philadelphia Eagles 29, Houston Texans 17. Some of these things are going to be kind of self-explanatory, so I'm not going to, you don't need me to tell you that Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback. One, he is. Miles Sanders, he hasn't really hit the ceiling games that we'd kind of hoped that he would, but he's an every week running back too. Unfortunately, Kenneth Gainwell is the primary passing down back, and that hurts Sanders' value moving forward. That is subject to change, but the coaching staff really does like Gainwell a lot. So I think that Sanders is just going to continue to be a, low end double digit kind of weekly score, which is good. That is very helpful. And you don't really have to think of, to the potency of the offense, you don't really have to think about him. Matchup wise, Gainwell, it's tough to say whether or not he would step into the lead role or if they would bring in Boston Scott in the event that Miles Sanders missed time, but we do know that Gainwell has a standalone role. AJ Brown, wide receiver 1, elite efficiency. Devontae Smith, volatile, but we like him, and I think he does belong in starting lineups as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 at worst on a weekly basis. Dallas Goedert, absolute monster. This Houston Texans linebacking core has had coverage issues, but Goedert is Goedert. On the Houston side of things, Davis Mills, you shouldn't have in redraft. He is a really hard to justify even in Superflex formats. If you have him in Dynasty, I would be trying to trade him. Like, if you got a Texas buddy who thinks he could turn into something. A lot of people, I think probably out of hope for their own team, can convince themselves that a guy just needs time, or I think he could still develop. And no, we know what Davis Mills is. And Seattleites, you want to come at me about Geno? Let's have that conversation. On the wide receivers, Philip Dorsett, Chris Moore, they were a 1 week thing. As improbable as they were against the Philadelphia defense, they're a 1 week thing. Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks should be back this week. Ignore the tight ends. Rex Burkhead still has a standalone passing down role, but Pierce is getting more passing down usage, and they're having him run routes on early downs. So, maybe a guy to compare him to is Jonathan Taylor last year. Taylor he is a good pass catcher, and he did well in the receiving game last year, but he was not a passing down back. And the 2022 season is kind of emblematic of what that can mean for guys who are lead rushers and who have pass catching potential, but or who have pass catching talent, but don't actually get the passing down work. So for this year, I don't think you have to worry about Pierce. I mean, he's healthy. The offensive line is significantly improved from last year. And yeah, I mean, he's just, his usage is just increasing, and he's been a beast for you so far this year. So I wouldn't be, just be happy you got Pierce, and Rex Burkhead does belong as a bench stash. Los Angeles Chargers 20, Atlanta Falcons 17. Stick with Herbert. This was not like a wolf eating the world kind of event, but stick with him. He's an elite quarterback. 1. Josh Palmer, he did a really good job of earning targets, and he needed to here. He needed to kind of shut people like me up. I was very high on Josh Palmer. I have been very high on Josh Palmer as the year has gone on, and he's failed to really carve out a role. I've lessened on him and advised selling him in Dynasty, but this was a good outing, and we can feel good about him this week, operating as the number 1 there. Michael Bandy is a fun Dynasty format story. That's about it. DeAndre Carter, big disappointment. You can't really bank on him. He's not a good wide receiver. He's a good returner, and he can run fast. Gerald Everett is a friggin' monster. We did like this matchup a lot, and I had him ranked as my, I think my tight end 2 this week. He is a good example of how it can take tight ends a long time to actually like truly develop. Eckler is an elite RB1, but Sony Michel is getting passing down work. Isaiah Spiller is getting a little bit of rushing work though, so that's noteworthy. In the event that Eckler misses time. Mariota disappointed in this one, both from a passing perspective and from rushing. His rushing was like just a hair under where it normally is, but that does count for something when we're playing with margins that Mariota has. So big old bummer. I think the day, well, I know the day would look a lot different had he not missed Kyle Pitts, who was streaking down the field with no one in front of him on what would have been a layup 73-yard touchdown. It's possible that Pitts could have gotten run down, but he had basically just cooked the 2 coverage defenders and was just running free. And that at the time of where the catch was taking place, as I recall, I think he was pretty close to the red zone, and one of the defenders was trying to turn around, and the other one had basically just turned around. So I don't think he was going to get caught. Over at the 33rd team, I broke down Kyle Pitts usage. It's really astonishing, and I think that he was far more. I think that he was far more slow. Sorry, I'm realizing I'm looking at my own article and noticing the edits, which is always a fun exercise. I think that Kyle Pitts was hampered by his hamstring strain more so than we previously realized. And I broke down the data during the theoretical, or the tight ends tend to miss 2.6 games with a hamstring strain. He only missed 1. But what I did was I chopped up the season as though with 2.6 or 3 games after the hamstring strain, to see if his per route data and everything was impacted negatively, and it was. His data dropped all over the place. His receiving efficiency, his average depth of target, what he was doing after the catch, it all dropped in the typical window where tight ends usually miss time with a hamstring strain. And I know that that 2.6 game mark because of the great Adam Hutchison of 444 and his injury index. So go check out the article, but it breaks down basically Pitts is back to being an elite usage guy. And I do think that he's going to I think he's going to just erupt at the end of this year. And maybe he won't, but we're playing the odds, and the odds are ever in Pitts' favor. So I would be trying to trade for him if possible. Drake London is just a freak target earner. If they either increase the passing rate or get a quarterback in there, like London can go from shaky wide receiver 3 or 4 to a top 12 player. This guy is insane. As is the Atlanta Falcons passing rate. Final note here, I broke this down at the 33rd team too. There is room enough for both Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier to produce. Patterson's a running back 1, borderline running back 1, and Algier is top 24 this week. But maybe more so top 36, depending on how things shake out. But I like both of them. Miami Dolphins 35, Chicago Bears 32. Tua is a quarterback 1, as are Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are wide receiver 1s. Gesicki is a matchup only tight end. You don't need to have him rostered. Super cool stuff at the backfield here. Over at Pro Football Focus, both in the DFS cheat sheet and on the free PFF injury or fantasy football injury DFS and betting podcast that Ian Harditz and I do on Fridays. I broke down why I thought Jeff Wilson Jr. had a chance to be the lead running back in Miami this week. And he was. He's the lead rusher. They split. Yeah. I broke all of the data down in my article at the 33rd team, which is free. You can read it. It's out right now. And it is called Fantasy football week 9, 5 things we learned. Yeah, so you can go check out the usage stuff there, but basically Wilson outsnapped him. He got more. They split carries evenly. Wilson was way more efficient, and Wilson also outproduced him as a pass catcher. And yeah, he earned more targets. It's pretty awesome. Mostert still kind of has a snap edge, which you can go read about in terms of the passing on stuff. But like this was better usage than even I had expected Wilson to receive. So that was awesome. Good for Jeff Wilson Jr. Justin Fields, elite quarterback 1. Mooney, I think the addition of Chase Claypool was really helpful for him, and I'm excited about him moving forward. Claypool himself is kind of a wait and see for fantasy. Cole Kmet had a really good outing. I've looked through the data in a number of different sites and things, and I think we're at a wait and see with him. It wasn't a whole lot different. He was just more productive, and like maybe he's getting better. Maybe it's Fields is getting better. I moved him into, I think he's the tight end 12 in my rankings this week. Cole Kmet is a monitor, whereas last week he was nothing. But I think that I don't want to just anoint him as a weekly starter, but it's curious. I'm interested in seeing how the next week shakes out. Dave Montgomery is a vampiric force in the fantasy potential of this backfield, and it sucks. Khalil Herbert is a better player, and if you want to go tweet about how Montgomery can do whatever and as a pass protector, great. Then that's all they should have him on the field for. Yeah, matchup, very, 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 very matchup dependent, both of those guys. Carolina Panthers 21 at Cincinnati Bengals. PJ Walker, still going to be the starter, even though they pulled him last week. We have official word from the team this week. He is going to be the starter in week 10. DJ Moore flopped, and it was basically a can't miss situation because the entire Cincinnati Bengals secondary was injured. So that is a huge damn bummer. Tune into Ian Hartitz shadow matchup report to find out if Moore was shadowed by their one moderately healthy cornerback in Eli Apple. Terrace Marshall, buy him in Dynasty. Pretty risky in redraft, but you could use him in DFS. Tommy Tremble, maybe Dynasty, but questions remain as to whether or not he's good. Donta Foreman. So I've caught flack for this. Donta Foreman is a success story in that he's been able to come back from the Achilles. The team relied on him heavily, and he's had a few long gains. He had some passing down work, I think, in week 8. This week, pretty much nothing in that regard. And I'm being specific in how I'm speaking there when I'm saying passing down work versus passing game work, because that's two different things, or passing work versus passing down, because one is like a situation that is stable. It happens every game. He's not a part of that offense. I do think that in some circumstances, it is helpful to remove explosive plays to look at someone's per play efficiency. And I know that we don't want to do that with healthy players or guys who haven't come off of Achilles ruptures, but this is a situation where this injury has derailed careers. And again, like I'm really happy for Donta Foreman, but I think that his sort of true colors have been shown, and he's going to be a matchup dependent guy. Now, this week, I believe that they are playing the Atlanta Falcons, so it's probably going to be wheels up again for him, and we don't have to worry about it. Maybe you can trade him high after this week. Chuba Hubbard is expected to return. Spencer Brown and Raheem Blackshear both got some work last week, but I think Chuba steps in and takes the passing game stuff from them. On the Cincinnati Bengals side of things, Jamar Chase makes a massive difference for the passing game. T. Higgins is dope, but he is not Jamar Chase. Keep starting T. Volume's there, and he's good. He's a good X receiver in the NFL. He's just not Jamar Chase. And he's kind of a Z, too. They move him around. it's just athletically, he's not on Chase's level. And Chase is also just a really talented player. Anyway, you can start Hayden Hurst too. Tyler Boyd, he's a matchup dependent guy. You just, start Joe Mixon every week. And I saw Rich Rebar tweeting about this was a big week for expected fantasy point usage, and that is true. That was true. Green Bay Packers 9, Detroit Lions 15. This should have been just a massive shootout game, and it was a total disaster. Aaron Rodgers, we've talked about this before. So he hasn't been throwing to the intermediate area of the field. And I didn't look at this week's data, but that was a trend since the thumb injury happened. I think it's still impacting him, and I think it's really bad. I think that the front office are just full of morons. They should have been bringing in serious wide receiver talent, and they didn't, and they are just paying for it. And that contract they gave him is testing the bounds of, you pay a quarterback to stay. But I still think that Rodgers is not ultimately the problem here. He's old, but I bet he could still go have a Favre season if he left. What's going on with the pass catching core? Romeo Doubs, high ankle sprain, out at least 4 weeks, probably 6. And then he's like impossible to trust after that, because he'll have to rehab it in the offseason, and he's already on the outs with Rodgers, and the injury, it just slows guys when they come back in the same season. So Doubs, you can drop and redraft. Christian Watson in the concussion protocol, but did not suffer a concussion. So he should be good to go this week. If he can be anything, then that would be cool. Alan Lazard. This is my first compliment towards Alan Lazard. This week, he did a good job of earning targets. It wasn't fluky. It was not, it was kind of a result of the pass catching core, because it's just destitute. But no, he did a good job earning targets. So good for you, Alan Lazard. If you could sell him, I would do that. I would absolutely do that. Robert Tonyan is not very good at football. Aaron Jones, his MRI and CT scan on his ankle were clean. No soft tissue damage or ligaments or tendons, anything. The x-rays, I guess, were inconclusive. So we prefer breaks to ruptures and tears. But I would want to continue to monitor this. Regardless, you're probably not starting AJ Dillon, because he's just a non-factor in the fantasy world, non-fantasy factor, and it's a huge, big old bummer. Las Vegas Raiders 20, Jacksonville Jaguars 27. As far as the Las Vegas pass catchers go, or the quarterback is like matchup only, my God, Devontae Adams, you can start him every week. We talked about how he was sick 2 weeks ago. I think he had COVID, but yeah, I think he's fine moving forward. Hunter Renfrow, Mac Hollins, and Darren Waller are just impossible to trust on a weekly basis. We need some sort of grounding performance example, what have you, to start trusting these guys. Waller, I'm wondering if this is his career. We'll find out. Now I say all that, and then I also say, if you don't have a tight end, you could really do worse than to go trade for him, because it's about as buy low as you can get. So food for thought. As far as the backfield goes, I broke this down at the 33rd team, so you have to go read all of the data there. But Josh Jacobs is no longer the primary passing down guy. He has lost that role. Amir Abdullah is factoring in, and Jacobs, so now he's the lead rusher, and he will continue to get, sort of like Dameon Pierce, Jonathan Taylor, he'll continue to get passing work on first and second down, but he's not going to, he's no longer that dynamic passing down guy. They've pulled the plug on that experiment. So that sucks. Now, could it change? Yeah, it could totally change. But the trends that we are seeing are that that's no longer his gig. They got a brutal schedule coming up. So I would be trying to sell Josh Jacobs. I would be trying to convince the trade partner, if you don't care about them, I'd try to convince them, or just see if they'll buy him as a running back one. That's what I would do. Trevor Lawrence, using his legs, he is pretty decent, and we'll find out if he's good as games go on. But I think he probably is good. Christian Kirk did a really good job of earning targets. He was also a super easy start based on matchups. So keep studying the matchups. Those slot cornerbacks that suck, he's gonna pummel them. Evan Ingram suffered a back injury. It's not serious. I think he'll probably play this week. Travis Etienne is still not. He has not been fully unlocked as a pass catcher. And so technically, if you were to trade for him at value right now, you would be buying low. So that's cool. Travis Etienne still has more of a ceiling to be found because he's getting most of his stuff done on the ground. Indianapolis Colts 3, New England Patriots 26. Oh, and for the story, I don't know if I read the score on the last one, but Raiders 20, Jaguars 27. So, okay, Colts 3, New England Patriots 26. They fired Frank Reich, and they're bringing in a former center who has spent a few years giving bad advice and analysis on TV while coaching a losing high school football program. I believe Hayden tweeted out that his high school team is 3-7. Sell anyone that you can on this team in redraft. I mean, here's the thing. Maybe Jonathan Taylor gets a ton of work, but he probably is dealing with a high ankle sprain right now. Go, check out Adam's timeline for that. But I mean, if Deion Jackson starts and he really betrayed us all, I mean, Ellinger, Jesus, this is such a train wreck. Jonathan Taylor, if he whichever one of these guys starts, they might get like 28 carries. So we could have a fantasy relevant running back here, but like I expect Jeff Saturday to go old school moron football here. I think I'm ranking Michael Pittman Jr. as a wide receiver 3. It's really bad. You can't start any of the tight ends. Yeah, we don't like three running back rooms, so we don't like 3 tight end rooms. Oh yeah, and cool thing about Jeff Saturday, he and his coaching staff have never called plays at a professional level, so they get to figure that out live. Jim Irsay. I hope what he's doing is that he's tanking and that he's going to hire someone else who's smart and not dumb, but we don't know yet. New England Patriots stuff. The quarterback situation it's cowardly. Bailey Zappi should be starting. Jacoby Myers and Ramondre Stevenson are baller target earners, and Jonnu Smith is starting to mess with Hunter Henry's workload, so that sucks. Getting an update here that Arizona Cardinals safety Budda Baker suffered a high ankle sprain. He entered that game with a high ankle sprain, and yeah, okay, sounds like he must have suffered some sort of in-game worsening. That's too bad. Damian Harris, I'd probably try to sell if you can, but he's got fantastic upside if you can afford to keep him on the bench. But like if you can sell him as they're gonna have a soft rushing schedule, touchdowns, whatever, sell him as an RB2, I'd do it. Buffalo Bills 17 at New York Jets. Josh Allen has an UCL sprain and some sort of ulnar nerve issue in his throwing elbow. That's a bummer. I think that he will miss this week. It is supposed to be super minor and he might be able to play. I think he's probably going to miss this week. We'll see. Jeff Mueller at JM Thrive PT and Adam Hutchison at the real Adam _H. Follow those guys. Whatever they say about Josh Allen, trust it. If Case Keenum is the starter, you can start him. I think as a top 15 option and maybe higher. He's playing his old team. There's going to be some teammates he's going to know how to mess with. I think that there's still some left over there. Now I have to check that. I just want to make sure that I'm not talking crazy because he was. Yeah, all right. He was in Minnesota in 2017. So I don't know. Patrick Peterson maybe still there. Anyway, yeah, you can start Case Keenum as a quarterback 1 streamer and definitely in 2 quarterback leagues. Stephon Diggs, totally fine to start him. Gabe Davis, probably a wide receiver 3. Going to be a little bit shaky. Dawson Knox. You can do better. But he could be started if Case Keenum is there. As far as the backfield goes, Devin Singletary, he's getting passing down usage. That's cool. The backfield is a 3-way committee. James Cook actually had the best role that he's had like all year in a competitive game. I don't even know what to make of that. It's a huge aggravating bummer. Nyheim Hines, I saw Jacob Sanderson on Twitter talking about how maybe Nyheim Hines was added more so as a kick returner. I mean, I'm not. He did say that he would be a running back too, but maybe there's more to learn about this backfield than we were led to believe with this trade. On the Jets side of things, Zach Wilson is a problem. He is awful, and he's not going to be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. The only guy that is fantasy relevant in this pass catching corp is Garrett Wilson. He is matchup proof. He is earning targets at a very comfortable rate with Zach Wilson. And we already know if Joe Flacco goes back in, we're good with Wilson. So it's awesome that Garrett Wilson is already doing his thing. So Garrett Wilson, you can start him as, maybe like the wide receiver 25 on a given week, maybe a little bit higher though. Weekly starter, matchup proof. Look for him on waivers this week because he's probably going to be dropped. And wide receiver 25, it could be even higher. I mean, man, the right matchup, I could see myself ranking him as high as like 16 or 18. That's valuable. Geez. This is a huge bummer. James Robinson is getting volume. Hooray. So what does that mean? Does it mean that he's going to do anything? No, not really, because he's inefficient and coming off an Achilles tear. Sorry, we're getting all these live updates. Nothing really that big. James Robinson, he's still an inefficient player, but he executes the responsibilities well. So it makes sense that if not in age, in philosophy, an old school kind of coach is going to like the veteran. It's a huge bummer. Michael Carter should be just unlocked here, but such is life. So James Robinson, to those that I suggested drop James Robinson, looks like that was bad advice on my part, and you should probably add him, and then we'll just sort of struggle together to figure out when the heck you actually should start him. Minnesota Vikings 20, Washington Commanders 17. TJ Hawkinson is the number 2 pass catcher in the Minnesota Vikings offense now. That's really cool. Nothing else to say there about that team. Yeah, he's the number 2. Dalvin Cook, hope you get it together. Taylor Heineke is really bad. And the Washington Commanders, and now they got to go play Philadelphia. Terry McLaurin turned in a helpful performance against them earlier this year. It's really difficult to bank on him again. I think the only really noteworthy takeaway is that Antonio Gibson is the passing down back. He's got the whole gig to himself. And Brian Robinson, I don't think he's our guy. Seattle Seahawks 31, Arizona Cardinals 21. Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and Kyler Lockett are all fringe top 12 players at their respective positions moving forward. Ken Walker, very safe RB1. Travis Homer does get some of the he's a factor on passing downs. Noah Fant and Will Dissly are both earning targets. Obviously, Noah Fant's got a lot more juice. I think you can add him in redraft. It's tough to say to start him, but I think you can add him, and we can kind of go from there based on the matchups. Kyler Murray, elite quarterback 1. DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver 1. Rondale Moore continues this hysterically high volume, middling receiving yard production against the Seattle Seahawks. I think he had his third double-digit target game in a row. Catches, mid to high targets and gets a little over 50 yards. In PPR formats, you're happy with it. Zach Ertz, you can set it and forget it. But I mean, we did know that he was going to smash against Seattle because Seattle is the worst team in the NFL by country miles against opposing tight ends. James Conner, he ran decently. Benjamin is involved in passing downs. I think that's sort of a matchup-based situation. James Conner could finish the year as a back-end top 24 running back. Los Angeles Rams 13, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 16. Biggest things that stood out to me on the Rams side of things. Van Jefferson is earning targets. He's not doing a whole lot with it, but he is earning targets. And I would roster him over Allen Robinson, and I would not roster Allen Robinson. Tyler Higbee was kind of a product of volume. Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson they're both in on passing downs. I would add Kyron Williams. I think he's going to step in and just like rock the house in sort of what is successful for a Los Angeles Rams player in 2022, which is not a huge endorsement, but like I think on a 0 RB team, he can be a weekly starter, and I think he could be a running back 3 on most teams. Cade Otton on the Tampa Bay side. Brady threw the ball a ton, so Otton's raw stat line is a little bit inflated. I have been pumping him. I have been saying that Cade Otton is an ad for a few weeks now. He wasn't all that efficient. He managed to produce, but it was just kind of a voluminous day, and I believe that Cade Otton, unless Gronk comes back, I believe that Cade Otton will maintain tight end 1 usage on this team. What does that look like, though, with the offensive line issues, with the potential emergence of Rachaad White, with maybe the wide receivers getting healthier? It's tough to say. They get to play Seattle this week, and we already talked about how Cade Otton is Seattle is the worst, statistically and fantasy points wise, the worst team against tight ends in the NFL. So you can start Cade Otton as a top 12 tight end this week. After that, I might try to sell high. I might try to, because he's going to have some Gronk magic sprinkled on him here. Some of that aura. If you can sell him to someone who has Gronk in mind, I would do it. Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White. So Lenny is still the lead back, but they're sharing time in basically all situations. Not awesome for Lenny. Tennessee Titans 17 at Kansas City Chiefs. Malik Davis is really bad. Like, even the dog's mad about it. Malik Davis is really bad. So I'm George. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It's upsetting. No. So you can't trust Malik Davis. Like his rushing ability did not save him, and that's a huge bummer. His second half passing, I think, was negative. I think he had like -5 yards. It was a good example of a quarter of sacks being a quarterback stat. Pressures are more so an offensive line stat. But when the quarterback does not throw the ball out of bounds or do something with it, and instead takes a sack, that's the quarterback's fault. And Rich, go look up this. You can find it. It is clear as day. Go read Rich Rebar's studies on sacks. What they do to a drive is absolutely devastating. Like the scoring rate, I think it drops by like 25%. Like in terms of drives that just end in points, it craters. It's already really hard to score in the NFL. You take a sack, that drive is probably dead. So anyway, Malik Davis, they need to go back to the well in drafting quarterback Derrick Henry, elite RB1. The only passing game components that I'm interested in here are Treylon Burks and Chigozie Okonkwo. So Treylon Burks, I think dude's a beast. I think he's a beast. And whenever he comes off of injured reserve, I think they're just going to load him up. Robert Woods is cooked. He's pretty old. I suggested people do not draft him this offseason. Old guy coming off an ACL tear, which can be difficult it can be difficult at a lot of positions, but it is difficult for wide receivers. He was always going to be rehabbing in season based on his timeline. It was not a good situation. And he's going to the friggin' Tennessee Titans, who have Ryan Tannehill is playing behind the worst offensive line of his Titans career. It was just a bad situation. So anyway, the old man, I think he's done. I don't think that Robert Woods needs to be a roster. Treylon Burks, he's got juice after the catch. They got him involved creatively. I think that Burks can be a wide receiver 3 when he gets back. It might take him a week, but I think that he can be fantasy relevant. Okonkwo, he's a sparked up guy. I think that Okonkwo is a dynasty asset. I think that maybe you could start him in a tight end premium format, but it might have to be like a 2 tight end format or something. Best ball. I don't know. I think Okonkwo's future is bright in the NFL, but might just be a little bit early for standard redraft or, regular redraft formats. On the Kansas City side of things, Kadarius Toney is a hold. They featured him when he was on the field. That was cool. He looked pretty good. But I think he's just a hold right now, and they really are going to kind of ease him into things. Mecole Hardman, pick him up and start him. Simple as that. He has relegated Marquez Valdes-Scantling to the sidelines. I was talking to a buddy today about this. I was pretty confident that Marquez Valdes-Scantling was not going to work out in this offense. I did not think it was going to be because that Mecole Hardman outplayed him. I just figured they would both fail, and this team would just succeed in spite of not having a downfield. Actually, what I thought was that Justin Watson would kind of separate as the downfield threat, but I digress. Mecole Hardman, he's balling. He's got the trust of the coaching staff and of Patrick Mahomes, and we've got our downfield guy right now. If they add Kadarius Toney to this, super fun stuff. We've got Hardman stretching the field. We've got Juju working the slot. We have Kadarius Toney doing everything else as a run after catch monster. And Travis Kelce. Now, the running backs, what to make of Juju. Yeah. He had a good game and he's a weekly starter. And not starting him is going to probably cost me a loss, unfortunately. Cost me a win. The running backs. Jerick McKinnon is the clear-cut passing down back. It probably doesn't have a whole lot of value outside of full PPR, but he is the passing down guy. Neither one of Isaiah Pacheco or Clyde Edwards-Helaire are doing a whole lot of anything. I would hold them if you have them. I would continue to hold them because that's like screaming upside in the event that one of these other guys misses time, but difficult to start them. And we did recommend that y'all try to sell high on CEH earlier this year. So hopefully you did that. Last note on the Kansas City Chiefs, Noah Gray seems to be the primary tight end backup. So if Travis Kelce were to miss time, that's the guy. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this format. I think this will be it moving forward. If you want to ask me questions on Twitter, at Nic Bodiford NFL, spelled NICBODIFORD. You can hit us all up at NerdBall FF on Twitter and follow us on all of the other things, Instagram, hopefully TikTok. Don't know if Pete's running that yet. But Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, sausage, eggs, chocolate, peanut butter, Grilled Charlie, for those of you that get it. All right. Thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate you. Appreciate each and every one of you. Talk to you next week.